In this video, I'm going to share with you an extremely powerful sales script that just works. This script works so well and it's so effective that I used it to build my first agency to 7 figures and my latter coaching business to 8 figures. And in this video, I'm going to walk you through step by step how to gain control of the conversation basically off the offset, how to portray yourself as an expert during the sales call so people actually buy from you. And I'm going to give you an entire step-by-step walkthrough of the entire sales process that you need to use to convert high-ticket clients for your agency. Let's get started. Okay, so here we are inside of the laptop. Now, if you want this Google Doc, I will make it available to you later on in the video. So if you want to get your hands on it, just watch and I'll explain how to get it later. So the first thing you have to understand about this is I'm going to walk you through the exact script, the pitch, the process that helped me sign over 350 clients. But before I explain this pitch, there are some things I need you to actually understand, okay? And the first thing you need to understand is this thing that we call the gap. Understand, when you get onto a sales call, every single person that you're talking to has 2 states of mind. They have their current situation and their desired situation. And between these 2 states is something called the gap. And if you don't understand the gap, you can't sell properly. So let me explain. So with a sales call, you have 3 priorities, okay? Priority number 1 is it's not even to close them, right? It's not even to close them or qualify them or any of these fancy terms and, sales jargon words that, these sales gurus use to convince you that what we're talking about, right? What you're doing here at the start is clearly understanding and defining the prospect's current situation. This is priority number 1, is throughout your questioning is understanding where is this person at and really defining a clear-cut state. The second thing is to clearly understand and define their desired situation, okay? So our first 2 priorities on a sales call are not to close or ABC, always be closing or qualifying or discovery. What we're doing is we're trying to understand where are you right now and where do you want to be? Because once we have these 2 states, we have pain and pleasure to work with. And what I mean by this is people's current situations are typically quite painful. You're probably aware of this right now. Let's say, for example, that you are struggling to book appointments and get clients. That is your current situation. Your current situation is a couple of clients, but no predictable way of acquiring new ones. It's chaos, it's a mess, it makes you nervous, it keeps you up at night. You get emotional, it's stressful, right? But then you have a desired situation, which could be $10,000 a month, and that's when you've got a consistent amount of appointments coming in without you having to do any work. And there's a massive contrast between these 2 states. And what you're trying to do as a salesperson is build pain. I'm going to say that again. What you're trying to do as a salesperson is build pain. And what we cannot do is inflict pain on the prospect emotionally. All we can do is amplify pain that already exists. And how do we do that? We do it by fleshing out and clearly helping them and you understand and define where they're currently at. And then we contrast that and mirror it against where they could be if the problem they had in their current situation was solved. This is the art of sales. And this is how true masters will sell. And 1 and 2 serve the purpose of building the gap. Because if someone's going to buy from you, they need to perceive value, and value is created or perceived when pain is alleviated. And so someone buys something because they believe it's going to help them remove pain from their life. And so the more pain you can build on the sales call, the more value you can supposedly release. So I'm going to give you the questions, I'm going to give you the exact script, I'm going to walk you through how I pitch people, I'm going to give you everything. But if you don't understand this premise, you're not going to be able to close people. Priority number 3, once you've established 1 and 2, is then to position your offer, your product, whatever it is you're selling, your service, as a bridge between the 2 states. So you are selling a bridge, essentially. Okay, it's priority number 3. If you want to become an incredible salesperson, never, ever, 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 ever forget this. Great salespeople do not sell products or services, they sell outcomes. You're selling a future state that is achieved as a result of doing or using the product or service. You don't sell marketing services or Facebook ads. You sell desire, hope, and a dream. You sell pain alleviation. You don't sell products. You sell future states that people want to achieve. It's so imperative that you get this into your brain early on in your sales career, because this was the initial conditions that I had through my sales training. And I went on to do like 2,500 or 3,000 sales calls with an average 40% conversion rate in my sales tenure. And the reason I was able to have that is because I understood this. Now, I also want to give you an ethical use warning here. Not that I don't trust people, but this video contains the exact words that I used, the exact line of question that I used to conduct 2,500 sales calls and close between 750 to 1,000 clients. In the wrong hands, it can be dangerous and can cause some trouble. Now, I don't want to get all Tony Stark to Spider-Man on you, but genuinely I mean this, with power does come an actual responsibility, okay? This process can be used to sell anything. I implore you use it ethically and honestly. Please only use this process if you genuinely believe you can help someone. I'm going to give you the words. I'm going to give you exactly like what to say, when to say it, and how to say it. And by giving a lot of people that, I'm aware that a lot of people are going to do bad with it. So please don't, okay? So let's get into some best practices and a couple of bits and pieces that you need to understand before we go through the script. These are pretty self-explanatory, but the first thing you need is a quiet room. So when you're conducting your sales calls, I do them in a quiet room where you will not be disturbed. No barking dogs, no screaming kids, no beeping, no roadworks, just somewhere you can actually focus and truly listen. Because this is the cornerstone to sales, is truly listening to the person. What are they actually saying through their words, through their tone? Camera off. Turn your camera off. This is contrary to most sales advice. I conducted every single one with a very few exceptions, right? Most of my sales calls without a camera, and all 8 of my sales reps at the moment conduct calls without a camera. When your camera is on, you cannot focus solely on your prospects and their problems. Everyone who does sales these days will tell you to turn the camera on because it builds trust. I turn it off because I believe it builds distraction, and I find it relatively easy to build trust just through my voice. If you have your camera on, you can't really focus because you're seeing yourself, if that makes sense. A lot of people would disagree with me on this, like a lot. But what I can tell you is like my entire sales team goes camera off, I go camera off, and like that's how I learned to sell. I think it works better. Notepad, have a pen and paper to take some notes. Don't type, it's noisy and distraction for the prospect. Write down everything you feel is important, pretty simple. No emotion, this is a big one. So before your sales calls, you need to release any emotions you have around like the previous day or the previous week or the previous hour. It's imperative that you treat each call as a new, fresh start. How the previous call went will have no real reflection on how the next call goes unless you carry your emotions over. So you want to be in a calm, tranquil state. I don't know, meditation, whatever makes you calm, right? But don't bring any emotional baggage into that call. Because if you've got a good product and you can truly change lives, you should not be letting your emotions interfere with that. Now, a couple of weapons of mass conversion for you. There's a couple of things that I want you to use. 2 of them, tools that I've used to close $10 to $20 million in like lifetime value. And the first one is silence. Everyone thinks that sales is about talking, and they think that it's about like, bullying the prospect into buying and, being this sort of like, over-articulated, verbose person that just talks and talks and talks and talks until someone buys. That is not the way to do it, at least not professionally, okay? Maybe if you're selling a car, it's different, but silence is by far the most potent weapon you can use. It's very simple, because when you ask your prospect a question, you just need to shut up. Do not talk over people. Do not butt in or interfere with their sentences, regardless of how muddled they are. When you ask a question, just shut up. Let them finish speaking, give them a couple of seconds of silence, and then ask your next question. Most people are incredibly uncomfortable with silence, and when we allow for the prospect's silence, when we let them, when we shut up and let them speak, they will talk. And the more they talk, the more leverage we have, okay? The more they talk, the further we understand the current situation, the further we understand the desired situation, and the more leverage we have to bridge this gap with our service or product. You will notice that if you give your prospects a couple of seconds of silence after their answer, they will start filling that silence with more information. If the prospect gives you an unsatisfactory response, just stay quiet until they know more, until they tell you more. Let's say, for example, you ask them on a sales call, hey, what marketing are you doing right now? If they say, I don't really know, then what you want to do is you just want to stay silent because they haven't really answered your question. Silence also makes the prospect worry their answer isn't good enough for you. So I could talk about this for like a whole hour, but I'm not going to do that because you're smart and you should be able to get the point. If you say to someone like, how much money are you making right now? And they say, yeah, we're doing all right. Just stay silent. The sales call is about the prospect, and it's about having quality information on them that you can later on use to secure a close. And the more the person talks, the more leverage, the more weaponry, the more you have in your arsenal, so to speak, to actually get the deal done. And not only that, but the more silent you are, the more the person feels listened to and the more they open up to you. And the more they open up to you, the more information you have. It all comes back to this, like, just building as much information as possible. And it also is a way of, just indicating and displaying professionalism and expertise. Just shut up, basically. So the second thing is to let them sweat. This is another thing about sales calls. Some people are just really don't get it, man. I explained earlier how the main premise for sales is pain alleviation. You want to put the prospect in as much pain as you possibly can through asking the right questions, because people buy to remove pain. Basically the first principle of the human condition is pain avoidance. Okay, it's the simplest idea in psychology that I think it was discovered probably by Freud, but it was probably rooted in Jung. Everything's rooted in Jung. But everything's pain avoidance, okay? So what you want to do is do what I call letting them sweat. So we're going to be asking the prospects difficult questions about their problems, pains, and desires. When we do this, we naturally dredge up negative emotions and anxiety in the prospect's mind. It is this pain that will motivate them to buy from us. Do not solve this pain, do not coach, and do not, for God's sake, start adding value. We need the prospects to sweat and sit in the weight of the gravity of their situation and their agony. You are not on the call to solve their problem, coach them, or make the pain go away. So here's the prime example of this is imagine you're a doctor. So imagine being a doctor, conducting a consultation with someone with heart disease, and you find out on a consultation, like, shit, you got heart disease. You're not going to tell them to not worry about it, as this will get the patient to calm down and decide to do anything about it. Pain is a motivator, right? And what a lot of people do on these sales calls is they think they need to add value. Don't add value. Don't coach. Don't try to solve the problem. Don't tell them it's going to be okay. Imagine you are a doctor with a patient that has a terminal illness. You might comfort them slightly, but you're not going to start to tell them, oh, don't worry about it. It's going to be fine. You're going to be fine. Like, you need the doctor needs that patient to feel some real terror, because by feeling that real terror, the person's actually going to do something about it. So you have to think like a doctor here in this sense, but also like stop trying to coach people. Ask questions. And that's it. If I say to you, if I'm selling Easy Growth, and I say to you, how many appointments are you booking right now? And you say, not really any. I really hate it. Like, yeah, I'm gonna keep some silence, and because obviously you're trying to finish a thought, and then you'd say like, yeah, it's really like I'm really struggling with it. Like I'm just finding it super difficult, and like it really demotivates me. And like I've booked like 3 appointments in the last like month, and like I'm just really worried about it. I'm not going to come in and say, hey man, don't worry, because we're gonna fix this for you. Like, you really haven't got to worry about anything. Like, this is gonna be fine. No, I'm just gonna say okay, and then move on to the next question. Because you need to feel it, and as soon as you stop feeling it, you strip yourself of the motivation to buy. So pain is a primary reason someone will purchase, so don't try to alleviate it. And for those of you that are thinking, well, this sounds Machiavellian, this sounds like you're manipulating people, it's not really, because if you've genuinely got their best interests at heart and you actually believe you can help them and change their life, then it's perfectly just. Now let's get into the nuts and bolts of the process. I've defined 7 clear stages of a sales call. So if you're new to SMMA, or if you've been doing this for some time, but you haven't got a huge amount of clarity on how to conduct sales calls, I want to start by giving you 7 clearly defined stages, so you know, like, how the hell do I actually structure these calls? How long should they take? What are the steps that I need to take someone through to convert them? So let's get into it. So step number 1 is the introduction. This is just very quickly chatting to the prospect before getting straight into the questions. I mean it when I say this should be like 30 seconds long, okay? I am not one to build rapport and ask someone how the weather is and ask them about their favorite football team, so I do not bother with any of that. Once the introduction's done and we're into the the nuts and bolts, I start by asking questions. And I'm going to show you the questions that I ask in a bit. But when you're asking questions, you want to ask the prospect questions that A, demonstrate expertise. You also want to ask ones that determine if they're a fit for your offer, build a problem, build pain and emotion, clarify current and desired situation, and contrast current and desired situation. So all the questions you ask should be a vehicle for one of these points, because one of the easiest ways to demonstrate expertise and build trust with someone is knowing the right questions to ask them. For example, if I'm on a call with an Anytime Fitness franchise, I used to sell marketing to gyms. It used to be like what I did. It was the first agency I had. If I was on a call with an Anytime Fitness franchise from the States or from America, I could ask them the question along the lines of like, so inside of the franchise, are you selling the group training package that's mandated by the franchise, or do you prefer to do your own thing? That question there demonstrates a level of expertise that is very deep, because the person is suddenly like, oh my God, this guy knows. Like, he knows that I have, like, the franchise is rolling out this mandate for this group training style, but a lot of the time I don't want to do it, so I don't. So some of them will be like, oh yeah, I do, or some will be like, I don't. And then a lot of the time they'll be like, how the hell do you know that? And also, like, you know, for example, if I'm working with a CrossFit gym, I can start talking about the owner of, like, the CrossFit franchise, because he can be quite tyrannical and some people don't like him. Or I could say, like, okay, and so all of the coaches you've got, I'm assuming they're all level 2 trained, right? It isn't even like it's not even really a sales question, but it's just demonstrating expertise and building that perception. Like, this guy knows what the hell he's talking about, because if he wasn't an expert, he wouldn't know these things. He wouldn't know to ask these questions. And a lot of people will judge you on your approach, and they will judge you on the professionalism and the understanding that you have in your niche. The other second reason we're using our questions is to determine if they're a fit for the offer. This is the main thing. Like, if you come into the call looking to close them, you won't close the deal. But if you come into the call looking to diagnose them, to see if they're a fit, like, you're genuinely just there to explore whether or not you can help them, that's where it comes down to it. A lot of people get terrified to make sales calls, and they get really nervous and frightened and stressed. And the reason behind that is because they've got this expectation set on themselves that they need to close this person, right? When in reality, you don't need to close them. You just need to start by exploring the fit. And so the easiest way to remove your fear of sales calls is forget about trying to close people and just try to diagnose them, try to figure out what the hell is going on. And then once you've got the problem, then you can start worrying about closing them. But by that point, you're in the trenches, you're not too concerned. Building a problem. The questions need to be focused around a problem. So what you're trying to do here is current situation, desired situation, establishing these two things. And then obviously between, like, we've got the gap between current and desired. But then more importantly, the reason someone cannot bridge this gap is because there's a problem blockading them. There's an obstacle, there's an issue. And that issue is creating pain. And so what we want to do is build this problem and flesh it out as much as we can, this big, ugly, nasty nightmare of an issue. And by building it, we build more pain. And we make it clear. And then at the end, when we pitch, we come along essentially with our product as a bulldozer, and we say to them, we can bulldoze this away. Now, I said earlier that you don't want to tell people it's all going to be okay and remove their pain, but this is the thing, is you say my product will remove your pain. You don't try and get rid of it now, you demonstrate that it will. Building pain and emotion, clarifying current desired situation, and contrasting those two states. Okay, this is the reason we do the question. Then we do the pitching. So after the questioning comes the pitch. Okay, this explains how your offer and product works in a way that is concise, is laced with conviction and confidence, vaguely explains how it works, focuses on the outcome, uses specific knowledge from the questioning phase. With the pitching, it's super simple. You very briefly explain what you do at a very high level, and that's it. You don't use a pitch deck. You don't need slides. It doesn't need to be 10 minutes long. It doesn't need to be half an hour long. You're vaguely explaining and briefly getting into how it works. Because what then happens is stage 4, which is answering. So the beauty of this is by having a short, concise, high-level pitch that's laced with conviction, people will become curious and will start asking you questions about how it works. Because here's the problem. You've got a service that you could talk about for like 4 hours, probably, or maybe like an hour. You cannot do that on a sales call, because the issue is that as soon as you start giving information to someone that they don't feel is relevant, the product starts to diminish in value. Because if I tell you something about my product that you don't really care about, and there's going to be a lot of things, you start to feel you're buying something that you don't care about and doesn't add value. And this is why elongated, long, hard-hitting, lengthy pitches do not convert and do not work. Because like if let's say I'm selling, you're a business owner, I'm selling you a Facebook ads retainer. If I start telling you about how we leverage pixels and how we use custom conversions to track them, you don't care. It doesn't mean anything to you. And the problem with this is that if I pitch you pixels and custom conversions and tracking and Hyros, you feel like that's what you're buying, which it kind of is. But if you remember, what we're selling is the outcome. We're selling the future state. We're selling the solution to the problem. And if someone doesn't understand something, they can't see value in it. And if they can't see value in it, they immediately believe it's not valuable. And then they think, well, I'm buying something that isn't valuable. So what we want to do instead is have a short pitch and have it so short that they have to ask specific questions to build a picture around it. And the beautiful thing is now what happens is they ask questions about our product that they feel are relevant to them. And so now the only information they're receiving about our product is information that they need to understand to make a decision. After a short pitch, we let them lead the way. We were asking, what information do you need to know to buy this? Instead of just giving them everything. Because 95% of what you do is they're not gonna care about. Now, they may need to know it when they come on board, and it may matter to the decision maker, it may matter to you in terms of being able to get them results, but they don't care. And if you start telling them things they don't care, they're going to not buy, because they're going to look at the product and be like, this isn't something I need. So I'm going to show you my framework for answering questions later on. I'm also going to give you an exact example as well. So, I'll run you through that later on in the video. After your pitch, you shut up and you allow the prospect to ask questions and then answer them in a way that gratifies the question, is concise, loops back to their goal, and shows, not tells. I can't stress enough this point. Do not overpitch people. Keep it clean, keep it lean, keep it concise, and you'll be fine. So, number 5 is explaining payment. Once the prospect understands what you sell, you need to explain the cost in a way that makes a lot of sense to the prospect and has a lot of conviction. So this is number 5. It's a big turning point, because once you've pitched someone, here's how it goes. Is you'll pitch someone vaguely, concisely, with a lot of conviction, like a 2-minute pitch on what you do. And then they will ask you a heap of questions. The questioning can go on for 1 minute, can go on for 10 minutes, for 15 minutes sometimes. Once they've asked all the questions they need to understand to actually understand the product and what they're buying, they will then ask the price question. So the price question is an indication of the prospect saying, right, I understand this enough to know how it works for me. And now I'm ready to ask you whether or not I'm able to invest in it. And that's how it works. And so the price question comes at the end of their line of questioning for you. So then we need to handle objections. So once you've explained the price, this is where the objections come in. The questioning stops, the dynamic shifts, and you need to be good at sales. If the prospect doesn't make an immediate decision to move forward, you'll need to handle their objections in a way that doesn't enter their frame, is extremely empathetic, explores and digs for the truth, doesn't trigger the ego, still assumes they're going to buy, is without bias about their financial situation, and is relentless, not giving up. These are the principles of objection handling. When someone says, that's a lot of money, I don't know if I'm there yet, I want to think about it, I need to go and talk to some people, pop it in an email. The first port of call is not entering their frame. So you say, I am so glad you brought that up. I'm actually ecstatic. Thank you very much for bringing this to me, right? Because the thing is you want to sound almost insane. Because when the prospect gives you an objection, what they're basically doing is they're setting a frame for the conversation. If your tone immediately after them having the objection mirrors or matches their tone, you've lost, right? Sales is basically like emotional warfare, okay? And the way the objection handling phase works is you either buy the prospect's doubt or they buy your conviction. It's a binary state. Someone's buying something. You're either buying their BS and their doubt, or they're buying your confidence, right? They're not buying your product anymore. They're buying your confidence and your conviction in your product, right? And so if you've ever seen a press conference in MMA before, or boxing or anything, MMA is a better example. If you watch Conor McGregor's press conferences, Conor McGregor is a master at framing, where he will create this cocky frame and give the other person no choice but to join him, even if they come in with a different game plan. And that's what you're trying to do with your objections. Like, if someone says, I don't know, man, I don't know, I just think I've done this before, it hasn't worked, I don't want to take the risk. That's a doubtful frame, there's a lot of negative emotion there. If you come in and say, what is there to think about? No, you've stepped into their territory. Sun Tzu's The Art of War. Fight them on unfamiliar territory, for God's sake. If someone gives me that objection, I'm not sure, man, I've tried this, it didn't work, it looks too similar, I'd be like, I knew you were going to say that, and I'm very, very glad you have, because you telling me that gives me so much information. Thank you so much. Let me explain. Can I explain something? Do you mind if I get into this? Do you mind if I explore that? Do you mind if can I try and handle that objection? How would you feel? Oh, I'm so happy you brought it up. Notice the difference in the frame, right? I'm not joining them, I refuse. I will set my own frame and stay there no matter what. And I've done this before, even if the objection handling phase is going on for an hour. It can be like 15 minutes, it can be 45 minutes of pure pure conviction and joy that I know I need to generate. You also need to have a lot of empathy as well, because if you want to change someone's mind, the first step to changing someone's mind and encouraging them to make the right decision is empathy, because empathy is like a Trojan horse for ideas. If you want to argue with someone or win a debate, the best place to start is I truly, genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, want to understand where you're coming from. Tell me more. Help me understand it. Oh, I completely hear you. Okay, so this is what you're saying, and that's because of this. Right, I get it, and I'm completely on board with you. I see it eye to eye now. Thank you so much for explaining. Right? Empathy. If people feel understood, they're way more open to suggestion, having their mind change. There's a few more points with the handling objections that you can see here, but I could talk all day about this, and I want to keep it moving. So closing. Closing is basically asking the big question and taking the payment. Okay, so most of the work with the closing is done in the objection handling stage, but there comes a point where at the end of the objection handling stage or throughout, you need to start asking for the deal when you feel it's appropriate. So what I did is I made this handy little diagram to demonstrate and visualize, like if you're a beginner or you haven't done many sales calls, roughly like how long each call should take and how long each section should take inside of each call. So the intro, no more than a minute. The questioning should take 20 to 30. This is where you're going to spend most of your time during the questioning. The pitching, 2 to 3 minutes. Answering their questions can be 5 to 15 minutes. Explaining the payment shouldn't take more than a minute. And then handling objections, this can be 5 to 25 minutes depending on like how strong the objections are. You have to understand that objections don't exist in a binary state. If someone has an objection like I want to think about it, the objection operates on a scale of doubt. And some objections are more powerful than others. So, some people will already have some conviction and they'll say they want to think about it, but not really mean it. And others will really want to think about it. So these objections, you can't treat them the same. It's not just an objection. It's how much of an objection is it? So sometimes I can overcome an objection and you get to the truth and root it out, properly empathize with them, and then convince them otherwise in a matter of minutes. But sometimes it can take me like 3 hours. And I've had sales calls before that actually have gone on for like 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, because I do not give up. This is the thing. This is a very important lesson in sales. If you're on a sales call with someone and you truly, genuinely, truthfully believe that you are in a position to change the trajectory of their life and take responsibility for their problems and truly change their life for the better and have a massive positive impact on the outcome of their entire existence, you have every moral duty to not take no for an answer. And this is how I used to sell. Is if I knew I could help someone and I knew that my product was genuinely going to help them, I would stop at nothing to get them on board because I truly had their best interests at heart. And I would bombard them, I would club them with conviction, say, dude, listen to me. I know this is stressful for you because I know you've tried something like this before and it hasn't worked and you've been burned and you've lost money. And I completely understand where you're coming from because that was me. But I am goddamn certain that Easy Grow can change your life, right? Insert Easy Grow or NorthFlow or Consulting Accelerator, right? I am goddamn certain that this thing will change your life. You've told me that you're in this position, you're not making enough money, you're stressed, you can't put your daughter through college, you can't even afford to repair the lawnmower, right? And I understand how painful those things are as a man. We all need to mow a lawn, right? You insert a little bit of humor throughout here, right? It works. But what you want is way more important to me. I can give you what you want. I can give you that $10,000 a month income. I can solve the problem. I can remove the obstacle. I can remove the blockade. All I need you to do is overcome this fear of actually having what you want. I am so confident, and I need you to say yes, because if you don't say yes, I'm not going to sleep tonight because I'll be thinking about this call. I know it will work. And I know it will work so well because I even guarantee it. You cannot lose. I promise. Please come on board. I know it sounds like I'm begging. I know it sounds like I'm just a psychomaniac here, but this is how much conviction I have in this thing, my friend. Here's the thing. Now I'm back in non-sales mode. You cannot fake conviction. Right? Notice how that was real. It was raw. It was genuine. If I'm on a call with someone and I truly believe I can change their life, all you have to do to convince people to buy is feel that emotion, feel it in your chest, and just let it come up. Because you have no problem handling objections. If you've argued with someone before passionately about something that is close to your heart, you've got it in you. So just because it's a sales context doesn't mean it's any different. Well, let's say you've got a political opinion that you believe very firmly about, right? And you're trying to convince someone to believe the same thing as you. A lot of people do this wrong where they just attack and bring their ego into it. But if you start with genuine empathy, genuine understanding, and then if you genuinely believe that your political view is within that person's best interest, and if they adopt it, their life will change and they'll be better off, you'd have no problem convincing them it's the best thing. If you have a specific diet and it's worked incredibly well for you and you truly believe it will work for them, you'll stop, and you love them and you truly care for them, as your parents, for example, you'll stop at nothing to convince them. You'd sit there and you would sing from the rooftops. You say, I know this diet will work for you. It's worked for me. I promise, just give it a go. Just try it. I really want to see you healthier. I know it's going to work because it is just magical. I love you and I want this to work for you, right? That's the energy you need to have. People think handling objections is about being sneaky and planting seeds and stuff like that. But it really just comes down to feeling this strong, compelling emotion of like, holy mother, I can actually change this person's life. And then letting that emotion come up from your gut, from your heart, that real raw feeling, like, oh, I can change this person's life. Oh, can you feel it? Like, and then talking and just letting the emotion run. Anyway, next point. So closing should take a couple of minutes. You're just taking their payment. And the total call time will be anywhere between 45 minutes to 90 minutes, 60 minutes on average. So when you're structuring your calendar and taking sales calls, you want to set up a 60-minute meeting. Do not do a 2-call close. I haven't even mentioned this. The 2-call close is absolute, how do I say this without using a swear word? Bonkers, garbage, terrible, awful. The 2-call close is a cope mechanism for people that don't know how to close. It is a waste of time in a high-ticket B2B environment. It is stupid, it is pointless, and do not use it. I have built my company to 8 figures using 1-call closes. I built my first agency to 7 figures using a 1-call close. The 2-call close, this whole the idea that we need to have a 50-minute discovery call and then we'll book another call. First of all, you open up an entire realm of inefficiency because now you've got 2 calls. Now it's chaos. You should never really judge someone based on 10 minutes of conversation. Third of all, they won't show up to the second call. You're putting another barrier in the way between you and the prospect. And what I'm saying here is that do 1-call closes, and if after 15 to 20 minutes of questioning, you feel they're not a fit, end the call. But if you feel they are a fit, why the hell would you schedule another call and now give them another reason to not show up? It's hard enough to get them to show up for the first call. Why would you give them another one? If after 15 minutes you should just say, and people don't object to this, by the way, there's this belief that if I book 50-minute calls, more people will book calls. No, it doesn't make any difference at all. I don't get it. It's just so dumb. Between the call, I want to warm them up, send them some information. Complete waste of time. Do not do them. Just do 1-call closes. Get this entire process done. This process has made me tens of millions of dollars before the age of 25. You do not need 2-call closes. I could rant about this for a long, long time. I hate them. I just think they're such a waste of time. If someone wants to prove me wrong, by all means, please do. Book the 1-call, do the 15 minutes of discovery, and if you feel they're not a fit, end the call. Do not book a 15-minute call and then think they're amazing and think they're a fit, and then book a second call. Do you want to know why? Because in that 15 to 30 minutes of questioning that would be the first call, you're building pain, you're building incentive, you're building awareness, you're building a problem, you're building emotion, you're defining the current state and the desired state. You want to use everything you get in the questioning to then persuade and convince the prospect later on. But emotions are like a warm bath, my friend. They dwindle and they cool down with time, right? And so if you get someone all, lubed up and emotional, I shouldn't really use the word lubed up. It's kind of disgusting, but you get the point, right? If you get someone in that state and all emotional, that's when they're most primed to buy. But if you're an idiot and you allow 24 to 48 hours to elapse between building the emotion and pitching the product, and then you hop on the second call, and then you're like, okay, so here's how the product works and here's the price, they're not going to buy it. Because the only reason they would have bought it in the first place is because of the emotion they currently felt. We want to encourage these impulsive, immediate decisions because otherwise, sure, you can do the 2-call close if you want to, but I just think it's a bit silly. Why would you leave time between asking someone questions that qualifies them and builds problems and pain and then pitching? It's just inefficient and you can't scale it. I've got 8 sales reps right now, right? We tried the 2-call close for a month and it was chaos because all of our sales reps are fully booked all the time. When I started booking these 1-calls, the first calls, they would not have any times to do the proper discovery calls, and then if new people wanted to book, it was just a mess. Very stupid. So I've tried this myself, which is why I have so much conviction it doesn't work. Do not make the same mistake. It cost me a lot of money. Moving on. 60 minutes is how long the call is going to take on average. Introduction is this long, questioning is the longest part, pitching is this long, answering is a relatively long part. Explaining payment takes a second, and then handling the objections, then the closing. So you can see most of the time spent here will be asking the questions and handling the objections. Pre-call foundations. So before I walk you through the line of questioning, which is here, let's go through some foundations. So bear these in mind before every call. First of all, release bias to the close before the call. Forget about the close. Remove your attachment to making the sale and getting them to buy. In the medical world, prescription before diagnosis is malpractice. Do not attach to the close until you've understood their situation. If they seem like a fit after your line of questioning, then attach to the close. When you're coming into the sales call, forget about their money. Forget about trying to sell them, because if you come into the call with an agenda to close them before you understand their situation, that's wrong. It's Machiavellian. It's not good. It's a bad thing because you don't know them. You don't know you can help them. You don't know if they're a fit or not. You don't know if your product can truly help them. You don't even know if they've got a problem. So why are you assuming you should close someone before you understand them? So first, attach yourself to the diagnosis. So introduce your bias to the diagnosis. Before the call, instead of focusing on the close, focus on accurately diagnosing their problem and situation. Imagine you are a doctor. If a patient comes in, you aren't going to focus on prescribing or solution until you have a solid and genuine understanding of the problem. So look at this from the prospect's perspective. If you walk into a doctor's surgery, let's say you've got a pain in your chest, right, and you're nervous about it. If you walk into a doctor's surgery and they sit down and they say, okay, so what's the problem? And then you say, I've got a pain in my chest. And then they say, okay, take this medicine. You're going to be like, what the hell? This person, they haven't done any tests or scans or, blood tests. They haven't even tested my heart rate. They don't even know what's wrong with me. How are they prescribing something based on there's the smallest slither of information, right? It encourages a loss of confidence. And it's the same premise. So when a doctor sits you down, they're not biased to prescribe a specific thing, although if you're in the United States, maybe that is a problem. But they're biased to diagnose if the incentives are proper and doctors don't get paid based on how many drugs they sell. Story for another day. Then you're biased to diagnose. Okay. So no prejudging. Remove any bias you have about the prospect before the call. Maybe you're afraid because they're older than you, or maybe because they don't you. Maybe you feel they won't have the money to buy. You need to remember, before this call happens, even if the prospect has alluded to certain things, you don't know anything about them. Let's say that you booked the call with the prospect. Even though the call was booked, they sent you a pretty snipey, snarky, nasty email. Just a short, blunt email. If you let that blunt email, terrify you and think, oh my God, I'm going to talk to a dictator here and I'm nervous. You don't know them. Maybe they were just having a bad day. This is the problem with these qualifying questions. I could go into this, the lead quality thing as well. Lead quality is the biggest mechanism for cope for salespeople. It's very rarely the leads that the problem. The problem's always the closing ability, but this is a story for a whole nother day. You don't want to prejudge them. So if you get a sales call booked, and on the sales call form, you say, have you got the money to invest in a solution? If they put not sure or I don't think so, don't assume they haven't got the money. That question is there for them to feel as though they are being treated properly through the sales process. Even if they say they haven't got any money, you want to treat them as if they've got hundreds of millions of dollars. And the amount of people I've closed that say they haven't got money is insane. But this is the problem with salespeople. It's if they're not closing if they're not closing deals, the first thing they lean on is the lead quality. They're like, oh, the lead quality is just not good. We're talking to people that are unqualified. Qualification is the biggest mechanism for cope. You're not closing because you don't know how. Not because you're talking to people that are unqualified. It's very rare you actually talk to an unqualified prospect because true qualification is denoted by having a painful problem. If someone's actually got the problem, there's no reason for you not to close them. Primary example. A lot of people say, I can't close because the people just don't have the money. This is an easy fix. Because if I said to you, if I was on a sales call with you and you didn't have any money, and I said to you, this is a winning lottery ticket. You can buy it for $10,000. It's backed by the US government. It's guaranteed by the British state. NATO will start a war with China if it doesn't cash out properly. And this lottery ticket is going to give you $1 million if you buy it for 10 grand. You've got 24 hours. Are you going to find the money? Yes, you will, because you've got genuine conviction. If I'm on the Zoom call with Joe Biden and the Prime Minister of the UK and all of these world leaders and they say, yes, I can guarantee my government will back this lottery ticket, right? You're going to find the 10 grand to buy it. Even if you don't have the money right now, you will find the money. And so this is how I treat my products and how I tell my sales reps to treat my products. Imagine you're selling this. People have the money. People can find the money. if they truly believe that it's going to work and they truly believe that it can solve the problem for them. So keeping your ego in check. So never make the call about being right, okay? Release all attachment you have to being right. As soon as you trigger someone's ego, the call goes from being a potential purchasing decision to an ego defense decision. People are going to say some wild stuff, and a lot of the time they're going to upset you, anger you, etc. Just let go of it all and be professional, right? Never ever involve your ego. Let go of it all, be professional. Never judge the prospect. So I'm not talking about prejudging them here where you think like they are a certain thing when they're not. I'm saying never judge them on a sales call. So as mentioned before, the prospect is going to say some wacky and wild stuff, and often they will disagree or be in often you will disagree or be in disbelief about how idiotic they are. It's imperative that you do not judge them and remain neutral, not letting your personal biases and belief systems interfere with the sale. I see this happen all the time. Like a sales rep will get like emotionally, like personally involved in someone's opinion because they disagree with them, and they let it kill the deal because then like they challenge it, and then the conversation it's so easy like to let your ego steer a sales call away from the close and towards like defending a point or a belief. So ask yourself what you want more. Do I want to defend this ideology that I have, or do I want to make money? And the answer should be pretty simple. Realize this isn't a game and that you're meeting a human being heart to heart. This is no game. We're not trying to win or find a little trick or cheat code to win the game of sales. We are dealing with people's lives and people's money. That's a big responsibility. Sales is about being human and meeting a human being heart to heart, one human being to another, and having their best interests in heart. In other words, sales is mainly about caring. And with that said, let's get into the script. So if you want this doc and you want this script to download, towards the end of the video, I'll make it available and you'll see how you can find it. So line of questioning. So there's some rules to the line of questioning, and they are as follows. Rule 1 is building a problem. Rule 2 is asking every question. Rule 3 is after each answer, leave 2 to 3 seconds of silence. Rule 4, do not judge whether they can afford the product. Assume the best. 5, just ask the question, don't elongate it. 6, don't bolt anything onto their answers, just say okay and move on. And 7, sound curious and genuinely intrigued, as you should be. So when you ask the question, don't elongate it. If you need to ask them how much money they're making, just ask them how much money they're making. Don't go into this 30-second weird elongation. It's just stupid. And if they give you an answer, just say okay and move on. The whole point of the questioning is to allow the prospect to let their natural, latent pattern or line of thought manifest, okay? We don't want to bias them in any way. We want to ask them a specific set of questions and let them think. If we start trying to converse with them through the questioning phase, we interfere and bias their thought pattern, which means that the information we're receiving from them is not pure and from source and truthful. And as a result of that, they don't feel like they resonate with it as much. And then when you come to position your product as a vehicle to bridge from their current to desired state to solve this problem, your positioning is much weaker because the current state and the desired state and the problem have been influenced by you, not by them. So, introduction, stage 1. Simple, just, hey John, how's it going? Where are you calling from today? Fantastic, I'm here in Dubai. Listen, I'm sure we could talk about our cities for hours, but we should probably just discuss your business. Should we jump in and get started? Bang. And then at this point, we also say, hey, just before we do you mind if I record the call? And if they say, why do you want to record it? You just say, oh, it's just so I can have a copy that we can refer back to afterwards. And then they should say yes, and then you get recording. If they say, hey, why haven't you got your camera on? You just say, that's a really good question, my friend. My Wi-Fi is just playing up today, and every time I turn it on, my Zoom crashes. I don't know what's going on, but is it all right if I just stick to audio? They'll be like, okay, sure. I don't know, dude, the thing about the camera, sometimes people get genuinely offended if you don't turn your camera on. It's so weird. It's very, very rare. But the odd person will be like, "Whoa, I want to see you. I'm not going to buy from you if I can't see you." And it's like, why? And I don't know. It's weird. I don't get it. But some people get upset. It's very rare that someone actually does get annoyed by it, but you'll find out. 1 in every 100 calls, it'll happen. Next, you're stating the agenda. Okay, so now you basically want to set the frame for the call, and by setting the agenda, you assume control of this sales call. Okay. You need to make sure that they are aware that you are in the driver's seat and that you are dictating the direction of this call. If you cannot state the agenda properly and get the person to agree to it and take the driver's seat, the call will not close. It will tail off into some wild, mentally draining, chaotic conversation, and you won't close them. So don't bother. Okay, John, so how this call will go is I will start by asking you some questions about yourself and your agency to understand your situation and also just a little bit about yourself. And then based on your answers, if it sounds to me like you're a fit for what we do, I'll go ahead and explain how it works and how we can help. And then towards the end of the call, you can decide if it's the right thing for you. Does that sound good? Then they'll say yes. If they say, no, I want to do this, or if they start asking you questions about what you do, you dodge the questions and you say, that's a great question. We'll hop into that in a second. I'm going to ask you a few first, if that's okay. And if they say, no, I want to ask you questions, you say, well, I completely understand that. And I'm glad that you want to get a clear picture around how it works. But that's not how we run these calls. So I'm going to ask you some questions. And then if they say, no, I don't want to do it, then you just end the call because it won't close. Don't just be their bitch. Doesn't work. Stage 3 is to establish the primary motive. So what we're doing here with our first question, and with the exception of asking like if they agree to the agenda, the first question really is a shot across the bow to try and immediately establish the first critical point of their current situation. By the way, you're going to see here that this says understand their agency. This is because this is the line of question that my sales reps use and we sell to agencies. So you can just invert this and you can use this for any type of business. I use the exact same line of questioning to sell gyms as well. And I know this works because I've taught this process to like 1,000 clients, and that's like 1,000 people in like 100 different niches probably. So it works. They've all closed clients. Establish primary motive. So, okay, John, so first things first, I'd like to know why you're here. So can you tell me what motivated you to book today's call and take the time out of your day to talk to us? What we're trying to do here is find the problem. The first thing we're trying to do, we're not asking them like anything else, like the most important thing we can do throughout this line of questioning is find and flesh out the problem, because the bigger the problem, the bigger the pain, the bigger the stretch between this current and desire, the more value we can basically introduce. Remember, value is created when pain is alleviated. How do we make money? Give value. And I don't mean give value in terms of like, coach someone on the call. I mean giving value to them in regards to the fact that like you can, if you buy this, you will have value, right? That's what I mean by that. So how do we make money? We give value, we add value. How do we add value? Well, value is created when pain is alleviated. What that means is if we want to make more money, we have to add more value. How do we add more value? Well, we introduce more pain. So the first thing we're doing here is finding a problem. So if it's not clear to you what their problem is after asking this question, you want to ask the following questions to flesh out the problem. So is there a specific problem you're hoping I can solve for you? Can you expand on that problem for me? Ask these open-ended questions, like they'll open up. How long has this been a problem for? Okay, it sounds like blank is the problem. Is this something you've been tackling for a while? So just building that problem, building it. So stage 4 is understanding their agency. Or business. Okay, so what do you sell with your business at the moment? Okay, what niche are you in? And the niche thing won't make sense if you're in the gym space, for example, but you get the point. Okay, so what makes an ideal customer for you? Okay, and out of all of your services, what do you want to sell the most? So what you're going to ask them is like, what are you selling? Because if you're selling marketing services or business growth, right, what do you want to sell? And then you ask, well, what do you actually want to sell more of? Because most businesses are chaotic and have multiple products, which is a whole problem in and of itself. And I could talk about that for hours, but I'm not going to. But if you talk to a gym and they say, well, we sell personal training, and then we sell memberships, and then we sell low-ticket memberships, and we sell classes, we sell T-shirts, we sell protein. You need to get to the bottom of this, right? Like, well, what do you want to sell the most? Oh, well, I want to sell the memberships. No. I really want to sell the personal training, but I think I want memberships as well. Now you understand what you're working with, right? And then you say, okay, well, so you want to sell memberships, you want to sell personal training, that's the main thing. How are you pricing these two things? You understand the price. Stage 5, understanding current situation. So now we're actually getting to the root of we're understanding, we've built the problem, we've understood it to a degree, and we also understand like a little bit about their business, and we've got enough to build a picture here. So now we're going to dive into the current situation. So, okay, John, so this is talking to agencies. If you were talking to like gyms or something, you'd say something different. I'd say, what are you currently doing to book appointments with potential clients? Then they'll tell you. And then I say, okay, so how many appointments are you booking per day right now? And then they'll tell you. So if you're talking to like gyms, for example, you might not say appointments. You might say like meetings or leads or whatever. Like how many members are you actually getting? How are you getting members at the moment? And how many members are you getting a day? Now, this is a great thing. You say per day because it creates more pain. Because most people can't think in days because they're not getting enough volume of interaction through their outbound conversion mechanisms to think in the day. So if I say to you, like, if I ask you, right, if you're an agency owner, and I say, how many appointments are you booking per day? You're like, per day? I don't even get one a week. By asking them per day, we build more pain. Because now they're like, shit, I should be booking one per day, or I should be thinking in the day, but I can't because I have to batch my appointments into a longer time frame because I haven't got enough to think in a shorter time frame. How many appointments would you like to be booking per day? So we're establishing this current situation. What's your closing rate like on appointments? Just to clarify, and this is the great question here. So once it's become clear they've got this problem and they're not getting enough appointments, we come in with this real sort of killer, this affirmation. Okay, John, so just to clarify and be sure, there's currently no system or process in place to predictably generate appointments with the business, right? Just so I understand this properly, you're screwed. Okay, and would you say you're comfortable with the current rate of growth in the business? Well, obviously the answer is no, but it doesn't matter. Because just by asking that question and them admitting to themselves they're not, the pain meter's going up. Okay, and how much money are you making with this business right now? This question here, I'm going to highlight this. This is a very, 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 very important question. Their current situation needs to be embellished and represented by a number. If it's not, it becomes incredibly difficult for you to pin them down and to clearly define. Because what we've done up until this point is understood their current situation, but now we need to define it. And we want to define it with a number. Because you're going to use this number later on, because this number is attached to all the pain. So if you tell me you're currently making $4,000 a month, and I know that at that point, you're not happy with how many appointments you're booking, you're not comfortable with the business, you're facing this big problem that you've explained to me in detail, and also there's no system or process in place to grow it, I know that $4,000 a month is painful for you. And so now I can summarize your entire situation with one number. And I can bring all your pain and tie it all to a scapegoat, which is this number. So when I'm coming to close you in the objection handling phase, I'm like, look, man, you're making $4,000 a month right now, and you're not happy with that. And I'm not going to let that stand. Because we know at $4,000 a month, you can't do this, and this. So we have to solve this problem. There's nothing to think about. I know it's going to work. All I need you to do is trust me. And I promise if you hold my hand, we'll do it together. So you need to have this number. Now, what I see a lot of people do is they say, would you mind if I asked you how much money you make? This is stupid, because what you're doing is you're asking them a question to ask them a question. You just need to be bold and direct and professional. It's similar to a doctor. If they need to know some information to diagnose your problem, and it's sensitive information, like the whole, are you sexually active question when your parents out there, they don't care. They'll ask the question because they need to know, because this is serious. So they wouldn't say, would you mind if I asked you about your sexual activity? No, they would just say, are you sexually active? And then God hopes you are. Otherwise, it's very embarrassing, right? But it's not. You get the point. I'm being unprofessional. But my point is this. Just ask them the question. And you might be freaking out, I don't want to, they're not going to tell me. They will. It's a very common question in business. Stage 6, understand the desired situation. So now we want to start stretching and future pacing. Then I'd say, okay, John, so what's the goal here? How much money do you want to be making per month with this business, let's say 12 months from now? So what we need to do now is we now need to define their desired situation with a number again. So we can then attribute all of the what we call the acquisition of pleasure. I don't mean in like a in virtuous, like hedonistic sense, right? But I'm talking like we want something we can attribute all of the gain of pleasure, because they're moving away from the pain, they're moving away from the desired situation, but also like a lot of people in human nature, we are moving from pain, but we're also moving towards pleasure. So the whole human brain, it's really a very simple way. Like it's very complicated, of course, but you can reduce it down, and with a reductionist approach, we can understand that humans move away from pain and move towards pleasure. And so if we've got this number that they're moving away from, we need a number that they're moving towards. So what we can do is we can have both forces working to them making a decision. Because if they're moving away from pain, that is enough to get them to buy. But if they also feel they're moving towards pleasure, which is even better because it's contrasted against the pain, you're even more likely to convert them. So we ask them how much money they want to make. So you're making $4,000 a month right now. In 12 months' time, what would be the ideal situation? $40,000 a month. So now we've got the desired situation defined by a number, we start to explore it. Okay, John, and what's your motivation for getting to $40,000 a month? You just shut up and you let them talk. And it doesn't matter how long they have to take to answer, you just let them talk. Okay, John, and so tell me this, how would getting to $40,000 a month have an impact on your life? Shut up, let them talk. And if they're not giving you much to this, if they're not giving you much of an answer, you need to build it out. Because the more information they give you, the deeper your understanding. You need them to dream. We're taking them on an emotional roller coaster here. We've just explored all this pain and they're feeling all this terror and fear and anxiety from the questions about the current situation. And suddenly we've switched gears in their mind, and now we're getting them to think about how amazing things could be. We are creating this extremely sharp contrast of emotion. It's amazing. It works so well. Okay, John, well, that sounds great. So you told me you want to get to 40 grand a month, and the impact that will have is like financial freedom. What exactly do you mean by financial freedom? And with regards to that, what exactly does that look like for you? Would you expand on that for me? This is a brilliant question to ask, by the way. If someone's not giving you enough information, just saying to them, like, would you mind like just fleshing that out a little bit? Could you just explain what you mean by that? Could you expand on that? Oh, man, that sounds amazing. Tell me more. We're letting them, build information. So here you ask questions about their main motives, and then it's simple. And then, okay, well, how would you structure your business if it was doing 40,000 a month? What would it look like from a team or a systems perspective? Or if it's a gym, you'd say, okay, so just walk me through this. So if the gym was doing 40 grand a month, what would it look like? Not physically, but like, how would the business change if it was doing that level? And then you're building this desire. Like, oh, well, I'd have this person in place, and I'd have this system, and I'd have a second location, I'd have this, and this. And we're building this desired situation, not only from a personal standpoint, but also from the business standpoint. Now, here's an important question, because if the prospect gives a desired situation that doesn't really mean anything, you need to probe, and you need to basically expand it. So if they're making 4 grand a month right now, and they say, oh, I want to make 6 grand a month. To them, it might feel like a lot, but there's not really much emotional leverage there. Right? Because their life won't change much by adding 24 grand a year in income. Maybe it will, but it's not big enough for me. You'd say something along the lines of like, I think you might be limiting yourself by aiming for 6 grand. What makes you think you can't go any higher than that? Or, okay, so you want to get to 6 grand. Let's say that, for argument's sake, you can solve this problem of acquisition and you can book as many appointments as you want. And that was the reality. What would the goal then be? If you're not planning your desire in mind, with your problem in mind, what would the goal be? This is an important stage, 7. Gap recognition and releasing control. So now what we're doing, now that we've defined these 2 states and we've stretched them out, what we want to start doing is getting the prospect to recognize the gap, getting them to admit to themselves and to remove this state of delusion that they've been in for the last few years. Okay, John, so you're currently making $4,000 a month and you want to get to $40,000 a month. So obviously, between these 2 points, we've got this gap, right? So what do you think is stopping you from bridging this gap and achieving this on your own? So by asking this question, by them answering it, they recognize the gap exists, but more importantly, they recognize they cannot fix it themselves. And so what we need to do is we need to ask this achieving on your own thing, because we need them to release control. Because as soon as they say they can't do it on their own, they admit to themselves they need help. And we're doing this in a way that bypasses their ego, and it's a wonderful question to ask. Part 8. So now we need to wrap the whole thing in even more emotion. Okay? So what we're going to do here is ask some very hard-hitting questions that a lot of you won't want to ask, but you need to ask them. Do not, for God's sake, be a pussy and avoid asking these questions because they make you a bit nervous, or you think that the person might think that you're being Machiavellian or sneaky. Remember, if you have their best interests at heart, everything goes. Okay, John, so you're currently making $4,000 a month. Why not just settle for that and stay where you are? Sounds like a stupid question, but they'll get very passionate. They'll be like, God, settle, dude. Like, I can't even like pay my mortgage properly at this point. And like my wife, I feel like she's going to divorce me because there's so much financial stress on the marriage. And like, I mean, like my kids don't really like look up to me too much as I wanted to. And this just, you are going to get a cycle of emotion, and all these things are going to start coming out. And that's what you're selling, by the way. Right? You're not selling Facebook ads or Google ads or funnels. At that point, if they admit these things to you, you're selling the reconstruction of your marriage. You're selling the respect of your children. You're selling being able to pay off your mortgage. This is what they're buying. Their business is a vehicle for them to get things in their personal life that they want, to satisfy emotional desires and to like fulfill these deep emotional drives. And that is the thing that you sell. Okay? Not Facebook ads. Okay, John. And if you didn't take action to solve this problem, what do you think would happen to your business in the long term? It would fail. We'd stay where we are. I'd stay in this. And that's what you're looking for, by the way, is the thing, well, honestly, not much would happen. I think we just stay where we are. Because we've established that where they are is very painful and it really sucks, right? So, important question. Okay, and what would that mean for you if that were to happen? If you didn't take action to solve this problem, what would happen to your agency? And then they give you the answer. And then you say, well, what would that mean for you? How would that have an impact on your life? if you say where you are. Okay, and when are you wanting to fix this? So at this point, now we're looking for them to confirm they want to fix it now. You can power move this question. So you say, okay, John, so when do you want to fix this problem? Right, we're trying to prime them for an immediate decision. So they're going to say now, or dude, yesterday, or immediately, right? But if they say like, oh, in like a month, then what you do is you end the call, or you threaten to end the call. You say, okay, I completely understand. I think what would probably be best in that case is we have a chat in a month. Then they'll be like, whoa. Why? Can't you just explain it to me now? And then you'll say, well, I could, but there wouldn't be much point because you're not ready to receive the information or solve the problem yet. So I'd rather explain it to you when you're actually able to commit to it, because I don't want to waste your time by explaining something that you can't do at the moment. And then they'll say, oh, okay, I want to do it now. That's the answer you get. We need them to say they want to do it now, because by them saying they want to do it now, we build something called the commitment consistency bias, or the inconsistency avoidance tendency in psychology as it's known, where like they've said they want to do it now. And so you can lean on that in the objection handling phase and say, look, dude, I completely understand the fear, but you said it yourself. We need to fix this problem now. So let's not go back on the word. Let's just do it. Power, leverage. And then the last question is, okay, John, I think I know the answer to this one, but how committed are you to getting to $40,000 a month and actually making this happen? Oh, I'm hella committed. I'm done. I'm ready. We're building leverage. We're building power again in the objection handling phase. I thought you said you were committed. Right? Simple. So part 9 of the questioning stage is something called selling the fit. So before you can sell them the product in the future, you need to sell them the fit. And so what you're going to do here, right, and this is what I do on my sales calls, this is not a joke, I know it sounds a little bit woo-wah and insane, is close your eyes and imagine, and I mean this is a very, very important turning point in the sales call. Imagine the prospect's life completely changed as a result of the next 15 to 20 minutes of this call. Because now what's going to happen, if you've got a good product and you can truly solve someone's problem, you are now for the next 20 to 30 minutes responsible for their future. And that is a very, very heavy responsibility, my friend. So take it seriously. So what you want to do is ask yourself, can I change this person's life with my product? And if the answer is yes, which it should be because you should be selling something good, then you want to feel the emotion come up from your stomach. Let's say that I was on a call with you and you had a really bad illness and I had a product that could completely remove this illness and I really wanted you to buy it. I would you do this really quickly. You're not going to sit there for 5 minutes and just shut up and just go, and the prospect's going to be like, what the hell is wrong with you, right? You just shut your eyes for a second, you let the silence sit, you feel it, I can't explain how to do this properly, but that's what I've done for every single sales call that I've closed. You just truly feel that, like, oh my goodness, I can change this person's life. Whew, okay, this is important. And then you need that emotion to bring this just insane level of conviction through your speech. And it's how you close people. And so what you then do is you sell the fit. So if I shut my eyes, let me imagine for a second that you, as a result of this next 3 seconds, or this next 30 seconds, your life will be changed. And I'll see if I can demonstrate it, but it's going to be, now my eyes are literally shut and I'm talking to a camera, so this looks really weird, but screw it. I'm sure you're invested enough in this video. So let me just imagine for a second and enter this frame as if I was going to pitch you something. Okay, John, that's all the questions I've got for you. John, I'll be honest. You are bloody perfect for what we do. And I am so happy, and I can tell you that we can definitely help you get to 40 grand a month. Truthfully, the ideal client for us is someone who is struggling to get more appointments. They're making anywhere between $3,000 to $7,000 a month. And what they want to do is they want to go for that beautiful 10x. They want to get from 30 grand, they want to get to 30 grand a month, 40 grand a month, 50 grand a month. And the reason they want to do that is not necessarily to buy a Lamborghini, but just more so they can actually have what they deserve to have in their personal life. And I believe we can help you get there. And that makes me very happy. So do you mind if I explain what I do? I kind of tripped up a little bit here and there, as you always would on camera. But I don't know if you felt that or not, but like, to me, like, John, I have this This is so perfect. I am so happy to have you here. And I have the utmost level of confidence that we can solve this problem for you. You are such a perfect fit. And I want to thank you for joining me today, because we're in for a pretty wild ride. So it feels like this is the start of the rest of your life. Let me explain. Do you mind if I hop into it? Dude, if you say it like that, you have primed them, because it's real, it's genuine, it's truthful. People are very good lie detectors, right? They're very good at, detecting when you're BSing. So that's a line of questioning. This document, like I said, will be available at the end of the video, so I will show you how to find it. But if you want the line of questioning to print out, you can go to this Google Doc here, and it's all there for you, okay? So yeah, it will be available later. That's the line of questioning. At this point, this is where most of the heavy lifting is done. The better you are at the questioning, the easier it is for you to pitch and close people and handle their objections. But feeling that emotion is the main thing. Feeling that raw, just like at the end of this question, like, oh my goodness, like I can help someone. Eventually, you don't need to have the emotion as much, because sometimes you'll talk to prospects that aren't emotional. And in that case, you just have to have this sort of professional expert feeling about yourself. But for the most part, the emotion is going to work really well for you. The next thing is pitching. So instead of actually making a whole document on the pitch, I actually made a YouTube video on this here. So if you want this YouTube video, once again, this link here, I've made like 500 videos, so you're going to struggle to find it. But this will be available in the document. I'll explain how to get it at the end of the video. With the pitching, there's a lot of important things, but really all of them are already explained in this video, so I felt like it wasn't necessary to drag this one out any longer. Now it's time to get to the answering. So if you remember, we want the pitch to be concise and short. And when you watch this video, which you should do after this video, you'll understand like how to pitch people and what your pitch should look like. And also in this video, I actually give you the entire pitch that I use to close people, right? Like word for word, I actually even explain it and talk it out. So the answering. So you give your pitch at a high, concise level, 2 minutes long. You might be thinking, Charlie, that's not enough time to explain what I do. It doesn't matter. All you need to explain is that you can solve this problem and that you've got this special system and you want to create curiosity. And then by doing that, the prospect's now going to ask you questions to gather information that they need to know to understand it. And every person is different. Every person will have different questions and need a different level of understanding to feel confident in their decision. So we need to let them pull the strings here, really. After pitching the prospect, just shut up. It's now their turn to ask questions. So invite the questions. At the end of the pitch, you say, okay, now I want to know what you want to know. And here's the framework for answering the questions. People don't really teach this. I kind of had to make this one myself. So with the questioning, the first thing we do is gratify. The second thing we do is clarify. Then we answer, and then we justify the role of the answer in the goal achievement. Here's the thing. We start by gratifying because in psychology, there's this idea called positive reinforcement. Maybe you've heard of it. It was largely invented by a guy called B.F. Skinner, who was a bit of he was a very interesting character, actually, but I won't get into the psychology of it. But you want positive reinforcement, which is basically if someone does something you want them to do, you want to reward them for it. It's the simplest method for encouraging behavior is you've done something I want, here's a reward, right? It's kind of like why we eat food, for example. Like imagine if when you ate food, you didn't feel like any sort of dopaminergic response. Like you wouldn't eat the food. It's kind of like why sex is so pleasurable is because if it's not pleasurable, you're not going to do it. And it's kind of imperative to us that like we do it because otherwise the species doesn't really work and function. And so our genetics are designed to make it pleasurable so that we do it more. Now, that's not the case in all the animal kingdom. I don't know why, but I'm not going to get into it. Anyway, I've spiraled here, right? So gratify. When they ask a question, you need to start by saying, that is an amazing question. That is such a good question. Or, I'm so glad you asked that. Or, oh, I never get this question and it's my favorite. Thank you so much for bringing it up, right? You gratify. Then we clarify. Sometimes people will ask you questions and it's important that our answer perfectly matches exactly what they want to hear. And if you don't truly understand the nature of the question, you risk giving them information that they don't need or they don't care about. And then if we start doing that, we break down the perceived value of the product because they think they're not going to need it. Then we answer concisely. So then we actually give the answer that they need to know. We give them the information through our utterance in a way that is short and concise. And then we justify the role of that answer in the goal achievement. Let me give you some examples. So let's say that someone says on the call, so what do the ads look like? If you're doing Facebook ads and this is their question, like what do the ads actually look like? I would say that's such a good question. Would you mind explaining what you mean by it? So we gratify and then clarify. right? And then they'll be like, yeah, so, because here's the thing, what do the ads look like? That's a really vague question. It's not, you could spend 10 minutes answering that and still not actually explain what they need to hear, right? So we don't just jump in and then spend the next 10 minutes talking about how we color code the creatives and like how we spend like all the time on the copy, because they don't care, right? So you clarify. And then they'd say like something like, yeah, so like what do people actually see that makes them become a lead? So they're trying to understand like the dynamic of the lead generation. And I'd say, oh yeah, well that's okay, great question, I think I understand. Then the answer is so concise, and it always should be. You say, what we'll do is we'll use simple text and creative ads. And that's the question answered. We're not going to go into a whole lengthy shebang about how the ads work. We're just going to answer the question. Because what will happen is that if this answer isn't enough for them to understand how it works, they will ask another more specific question. Because then they'll ask like, okay, and like, what do you actually say in the text? Which is what they wanted to know all along. But if we haven't clarified properly and been concise, we're not going to get to the bottom of what they actually need to know. And then if they ask like what the text is, then you say, well, how about I show you? And they're like, okay. And you pull up your screen and you find an ad and you say, it's something along the lines of this. It's simple, right? Show, don't tell. So then the main part of this is going to be like this. So, oh yeah, that's a great question. Well, we'll use simple text and creative ads. Now, the good thing is that all the creatives and copy we use are being tested for like 11 other businesses that offer the same thing as you, but obviously in a different area. So we know they work, which is one of the main reasons I have so much confidence we can get you to that 40 grand a month mark. This is the thing. You have to understand that every question represents an opportunity for you to build further confidence in the prospect. Another example. Okay, so what makes you different from your competition? You'd say like, this is my favorite question to answer. Thank you so much for asking it. The way you answer this, by the way, is as follows. Truthfully, Mr. Prospect, John, I don't know. I spend every waking hour focusing on my clients and their problems. And I mean, to be honest, I've never really given much thought to what our competition's up to. I know I'll beat them just by focusing on what actually matters, which is solving the problem we're facing. I guess if you're going to work with a vendor, would you rather work with someone that's focused on you or the competition, right? I think this is probably why I've also got a heap of confidence that we can get you to 40 grand a month. Sometimes the question is going to be super concise. Sometimes it might require a little bit more. But generally speaking, this is the framework. You gratify, great question, amazing. You clarify, what do you mean by that? Could you explain what you mean? Could you explain exactly what you need to know? You answer the question concisely. Hey, Charlie, like, okay, so where do these virtual assistants come from inside of EasyGrow? I'd say it's a great question, really good one. It's simple. We use Upwork, and they usually come from the Philippines. We found that they are the best, and we've got a very specific way of finding them so that you're only getting talented people. By doing that, it makes getting to 10 grand a month way easier. Zip. If they then have this is the thing, people ask questions because there's a motive. Because if the person before, if someone asks the question of like, where do the VAs come from? Where do the virtual assistants come from in the program, Charlie? If I say like, they come from the Philippines, and someone's hired a VA from the Philippines before, but that VA has done a bad job, now they're going to object. But that's fine, because I can handle that objection. It's not a difficult one to overcome. You ask a simple question, like, they're like, well, like I tried like virtual assistants in the Philippines before, it didn't work. I'd be like, well, how many did you try? They'd be like, oh, I hired one. Right, and if I just do a quick Google here, right? Yeah, what I would then do is I'd say, well, in the Philippines, there's 114 million people. Do you think it's fair to judge their work ethic and character on one person? Then they'd probably say no. Right? Logic, right? So you can defeat, like if someone asks a question, it's usually loaded with like an objection, but a lot of the time that objection can just be destroyed just by saying like, well, dude, I completely understand that. I've hired my fair share of virtual assistants before, so I know exactly what to look out for because I've had some bad ones and I've had some good ones, so I can help you with that. But also, let's not judge an entire population of workers on one person. Think that's fair? They'll be like, do you know what? That does make sense. I'm not that bothered. That's the framework. So understand that every question represents the opportunity for you to build more confidence if handled correctly. So I'm not going to go through explaining payment, handling objections, and closing. I might do that in another video. And I'm painfully aware that people on YouTube have attention spans that struggle beyond 10 minutes, so I'm not going to keep going. And I also didn't design for this video to keep going. What I wanted to do here was mainly give you the questioning and the pitching, because that's where most of the leverage you've done. If you get the question, the pitching, and the answering right, you should be able to explain your payment. The handling objection thing is a whole nother beast. If you want me to make a video on this, if you just put a comment below, I can make like a sort of detailed video on how to handle them and how to close. But the truth is that if you get the questioning and the answering and the pitching right, the objection handling phase is way easier. And most people think that objections sit alone, but they don't. They sit on top of everything else you've done. So as promised, if you want this Google Doc, there will be something on the screen now that allows you to find it, okay? I don't know if it's going to be a QR code or a bit.ly link. There will be something that you can go. My lovely editor, Kian, will put something on the screen for you so that you can access this one, download it, go to that video, go to the line of questioning and stuff. I've realized that agency owners are kind of like crows, like those birds, or like those birds that like go out and then they get like a shiny object and they bring it back to their nest. Like this is what I'm realizing. This is like a shiny object, right? In the element that you want to download it and keep it in your Google Drive so it's safe and secure. And yeah, that's just a metaphor for you. I used to be the same. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it. I hope it goes a long way to helping you acquire a bunch of clients. If you need help getting more clients and you are struggling to book appointments and close deals, I can help you with that if you're ready to be sold. There's a link in the description. It's a video of me trying to sell you something for full transparency. I make these videos to genuinely help you, but obviously I have this incentive of making a ton of money with my product. So if you want to buy it, you can just be aware if you click the link, it literally is like a video of me trying to sell you something. Truthfully, I don't really care too much if you click it or not, but you might find it useful and maybe you'll learn a thing or two about sales. Maybe you hate me. Maybe you don't want to click it at all. That'll be okay too. Have a wonderful day and I will look forward to seeing you in the next video.